Have you ever asked yourself, how exactly is this deck supposed to work? That's what I asked myself when I saw this list from Matsuji0620 that he used to top 8 a tournament online recently, featuring all three of the Galarian bird trio. We have Galarian Moltres, Galarian Zapdos, and Galarian Articuno all on the same list, and somehow this thing takes prizes. Well, ultimately the way that the deck works is by manipulating weakness and utilizing the strength of the varied attackers that we have going for us. Firstly, Galarian Moltres is a 3 count in this list with Dire Flame Wings. We can accelerate energy from the discard pile onto our Moltres and also use Aura Burn for 190 damage whilst dealing 30 damage to ourselves. This will knock out lots of Dark Weak Pokemon, which there are a number of in the standard format at the moment. Things like Mew VMAX, Shadow Rider Calyrex, and also a couple of Dragapult VMAX as well. Moltres will do the job for those cards. We also have Galarian Zapdos V, which is a card that was hyped quite a lot when it was released and now has fallen away. It's very, very strong against fighting weak decks like Eternatus VMAX because of its attack Thunderous Kick. For a fighting energy and 3 colorless, we deal 170, which will knock out all of those fighting weak VMAX Pokemon. The really important thing for Zapdos, though, is that Fighting Instinct, the ability, means that every Pokemon V our opponent has on their field reduces the attack cost by 1 colorless. That means 3 Pokemon V on your opponent's side of the field, you're dealing 170 damage for 1 energy, which is very, very good. We can also discard special energy using Zapdos as well. Galarian Articuno is less of an attacker than the other two. It's very, very useful for its reconstitute ability, which allows us to discard 2 cards from our hand and then draw a single card. Very useful in niche circumstances. We also have Psy-Ray for a psychic and double colorless energy. Does 110 damage. Not necessarily going to knock out too many psychic weak Pokemon, but can potentially get that KO on a thing like a Rapid Strike Urshifu, for example, depending, of course, on how much HP that card has. I've completely forgotten. The one card that we have that doesn't necessarily hit for weakness, but does help us out with our type matchup is Suicune V. We can use this as a generic good attacker for 2 energy, a water and a colorless. We do 20 plus 20 more for every Pokemon on both players' benches. These 4 V Pokemon all work together in tandem to take knockouts on your opponent's Pokemon, and using cards like Hoopa and Galarian Moltres to clean up afterwards, we can find ourselves winning a ton of different matchups with a deck that frankly doesn't look like it should work. So what we'll do is we'll jump across onto the ladder, we'll play a couple of games with it, and I'll try and show it off, or at least hopefully I will. So let's see if we can't get a win or two here. We've got Suicune in the active, we've got Galarian Zapdos as well, we've got a Quick Ball which I like the look of. We'll use that to grab ourselves our first Galarian Moltres. We can throw that down, and since we discarded a Dark Energy, we can grab that out of the discard pile with Dire Flame Wings. We'll grab Hoopa here as well, I think. We've already got a Moltres, we don't need another. We'll throw that down, and then we will fleet-footed with Suicune. Allows us to draw a card off the top of our deck, which is a very, very strong ability. We haven't managed to find ourselves an attachment this turn, which is unfortunate, but we should be good to go next turn. We have Energy Switch as well in this deck, which means that every time our Moltres accelerates an energy from the discard pile, we can move it to any one of our varied attackers, which can be really, really useful. Looks like our opponent hasn't had a great turn there. They've just gone for the Keep Calling, and with a Water Energy, I would suggest we're either up against the Suicune deck or an Ice Rider deck, which both of those are going to be very, very interesting to play against. I'm going to move the Dark Energy onto the Suicune. We'll attach a Cape of Toughness as well. And then I think I'm just going to use Professor's Research to discard my hand and draw 7 cards and try and find the Aurora Energy, which we've done. That card, very, very important in this deck because it means that we can attack with Suicune as well as all of our other non-dark type Pokemon. So, we've got a pretty solid state of affairs at the moment. We can Blizzard Rondo now without having to play either of the Crobats in our hand and take the knockout on the Sobble. That is 1 prize closer to our 6 prize condition of victory. And hopefully our opponent plays down a V card soon so that we can see exactly what we are going up against. Now, I recently, and I don't know if you've done the same thing, but I recently picked up the free-to-play Yu-Gi-Oh game, Master Duelist, Jewel Man McGee, whatever it is, and playing through that as someone who has never played that particular card game before, it's been very, very confusing. So I am going to try my very best to make my explanations a little bit clearer so that everyone knows exactly what is going on with the current board state. Hopefully you are relatively comfortable with it, but let me know if there's interactions you don't understand or things that are happening over here that are completely freaking you out because I'm not talking about them, then let me know. We'll start off by talking about Fan of Waves. That card is very, very powerful against our deck particularly. It allows our opponent to remove one of our special energy from play and shuffle it into our, or place it on the bottom, I believe, of our deck. Not a particularly good thing for us to find ourselves having to do. Now we will need to find another Aurora energy to attack next turn. Looks like our opponent is setting themselves up to get an attack with their Suicune. They've attached a water energy manually and also used the supporter card Melanie, which attaches a water energy from the discard pile and also draws 3 cards. So that's a very, very strong supporter, and they have been able to get their Blizzard Rondo attack off, which is very, very powerful. I'm thinking that we're going to go for a quick ball, discard a card from our hand to find a basic Pokemon. We might go for, I don't know what I was expecting to find here. I think I wanted an Articuno. That would have been great, but it looks like we might need to settle for nothing. We don't really want any of those Pokemon to come onto the field. And then we'll use Crobat, which we can play down onto the bench and draw up to 6 cards. So I'm going to draw until our hand has 6 cards in it. I've got Rotom Phone here as well. Let's use that. Rotom Phone, very, very useful card. Lets us look at the top 5 cards of our deck and then put one of those cards on top. I think I'll put the Dark Energy there, and then use the supporter card Money. We shuffle our hand, place it on the bottom of the deck. Our opponent does the same, and then we draw 5, they draw 4. A very, very strong effect. Let's take a look again with Rotom Phone, see if we can't find an Aurora Energy, and we can. And this is perfect. Now we can use Fleet-Footed to draw into that Aurora Energy. We can attach it, discarding a Darkness Energy thanks to the effect of that Aurora Energy, and then accelerating that energy using Moltres V. We are in a fantastic spot now. Blizzard Rondo does 140 damage because there are, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Pokemon on the bench, which is super, super strong. 20 plus 20 for every benched Pokemon that both I and my opponent have. 140 damage leaves our opponent's Suicune with only 70 HP left. So we are set and ready to try and take a knockout there. On our opponent's side of the field, they are using the Inteleon engine, which is designed to help search out all of these trainer cards. They've used Drizzle to try and search for a trainer card there, finding Evo Incense, and then using that Evo Incense to find Inteleon. Shady Dealings with Inteleon will find them 2 trainer cards. Looks like they're going to go for Quick Ball and Path to the Peak. That is very, very awkward for us because Path to the Peak is a very, very powerful card, especially against our deck. We rely very heavily on abilities, and Path to the Peak says that every V Pokemon in play has no abilities, which is quite awkward for us. Not a massive win by any stretch. Luckily, we have all the cards that we need to take a knockout here, but it definitely would be great if we could remove that sometime soon. Alrighty, so we are going to attach the Dark Energy that is in our hand to Hoopa. We'll then retreat using the Air Balloon on our Galarian Moltres, and then use Assault Gate to deal 90 damage to this Suicune. Assault Gate only deals damage if we've moved into the active that turn, and we take 2 prizes, which is a big win. One of those prizes being Professor's Research, which will be very, very handy to get us out of this very, very awkward situation. We also have Galarian Articuno, which could potentially be useful. We could use that to draw some cards if we do find a stadium of our own. But it looks like our opponent is going into the Giant Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX. A very, very powerful attacker. Ride of the High King and Max Lance are both super strong attacks. Plus, they have the quick shooting Inteleon in play, which means they'll be able to deal just that little bit extra damage. And in fact, it's going to be perfect numbers to get the knockout on the Hoopa there. Hoopa only has 120 HP. Luckily for us, they have a 3-prize Pokemon on the field, and we do not. So we're in a relatively good spot here. I'm going to grab, I think I just grabbed the Moltres here. I'm likely to play it down without the effect, just because I want the Pokemon in play, and then I will use Energy Switch to put an energy onto Suicune. Hopefully we can draw into an Aurora Energy here, which we can, which is really, really good. We will attach that. We'll have to discard a card from our hand. Likely going to be the boss's orders. We don't really care about that at this stage. Could be useful, to be fair, but I think we are set with just a Blizzard Rondo here. That's going to deal 140 damage, and hopefully in the next turn or so, we will be able to knock this Calyrex out. We could potentially get energy onto Moltres. If we do find something like an energy switch, we might be able to get that there. Or perhaps our opponent plays down a bunch of Pokemon and we are able to deal 200 damage with our Suicune, which would be just as good. Now, our opponent using money, we shuffle our hand to the bottom and draw 4, and we haven't bricked off of that. We haven't found ourselves without playable cards, which is good. We do have Professor's Research in our hand. We've got Great Ball as well, and also Zapdos. Not necessarily a great card in this particular matchup, but definitely good in the sense that it can add some extra damage to our Suicune's output. Now, something that I haven't mentioned here is that Max Lance from Calyrex VMAX is a very, very strong attack. It's going to deal 250 damage, I believe it is. Is that correct? Yes, it is, which is not quite enough to knock us out. We have the big cape there, big O capo, which is able to keep us alive. Our opponent may be missing that when they placed 20 damage on the Crobat on the bench with their quick shooting. They could have potentially got a knockout, but in the end, it's not that big of a deal for us. We are able to throw down an energy onto Moltres here. We can throw down the Rose Tower as well, which gives us access to all of our abilities. We've got Direflame Wings, which we can utilize as well. We've got a couple of Rotom Phones we could use, so we'll use those. Now, see what we can find. Not really anything particularly useful here. Might just grab a Rose Tower again, just in case the Path of the Peak comes down. Path to the Peak will reconstitute away these energies as well. See what we can find off of the next Rotom Phone. We've got an Escape Rope and a Rose Tower and a couple of energy. We'll just put that on top and draw that with our Rose Tower. We can Fleet-Foot it as well. Draw a card, and then we can Blizzard Rondo. I'm not entirely sure how much this is going to do. I don't think it's enough. We'll just hit the button and... oh. It was exactly enough. Well, I've just wasted a lot of time there. My opponent's probably very mad at me for doing that. So that first game really showing off the Suicune aspects of this deck. That ultimately will be the main attacker for most of your games, but you never know. Sometimes other decks could come up. I mean, in this game, we're going to have to hope that our Articunos, our Moltres, and our Zapdos do come up, because we don't have a great hand here. It's looking pretty grim. Our opponent has a Lightning-type deck box, though, so maybe we are going up against a Boltoned deck, or maybe even a Rayquaza VMAX. Both of those would be good matchups for our Zapdos in particular. So we'll wait and see exactly what we are playing against, but in the meantime, I'll very, very kindly encourage you all, if you would please consider jumping down below and clicking that like button for me. That would be fantastic. The more people that like the video, the more nuggets I'm able to buy from McDonald's. It's just the rules. It's the rules that my wife has set out. There are so many energy in my hand. We're going to play down Rose Tower. We are going to attach an energy to Zapdos. We may as well. I mean, there's 4 of them going into the discard pile, and luckily we've managed to find our other 2 birds here. So let's grab ourselves a energy with Direflame Wings. We'll use Great Ball as well. See what we can find. Is there anything here? I mean, Zapdos could be very useful in this matchup. We have a Quick Ball as well. Maybe I grab the little baby Moltres here. We don't really need that. We're not going to have any energy to utilize it, so may as well get rid of it. And we also have Suicune, which I like. We can get all four of our different coloured VMAX V Pokemon into play. We could potentially move one of these energies around. I don't think we need to. Next turn, we could actually attack with Zapdos's Thunderous Kick, thanks to the Aurora energy in our hand. We already have a Dark energy on the Zapdos, and if we do attack into the Crobat, that will be a knockout thanks to weakness, doubling the amount of damage that we do. So definitely a good strategy. It looks like our opponent doesn't want that to happen, so they're using Boss's orders to switch our active Pokemon with a benched Pokemon, bringing the Articuno into play, which is fair enough. Articuno is a pretty good Pokemon, but it's not necessarily going to be doing any attacking in this matchup, so definitely not unhappy seeing that there. We are in a weird spot here, though. We can attach an Aurora energy if we want to, but if we do, we might actually find ourselves without energy later. I'm going to go for it, I think. We'll just use Direflame Wings first. This is a tough choice, really. We will attach, and we'll get rid of the energy switch. I will then use Marnie. We'll shuffle our hand to the bottom of the deck and draw 5 cards, and hopefully in these 5 cards we can find a way to retreat the Articuno from the active position. We'll throw down a Rotom Phone, and there is an Escape Rope there, which is fantastic. So that will get us out of this awkward spot. I'm going to reconstitute. We'll get rid of Hoopa and Raihan here. A bit of a gamble getting rid of Raihan, but I'm not necessarily unhappy with that, considering the fact that we can draw some more cards using Rose Tower. Now, I have an opportunity here to grab a Quick Ball with Rotom Phone. We'll put that on top of the deck and then use Rose Tower to draw into it. Then I'll Quick Ball. I'll get rid of the Articuno. We don't really need 2 of them, and I will utilize Crobat here as well. We'll hold on to the Rotom Phone for next turn. You never know when we might need it. And this hand is actually pretty solid. We'll Thunderous Kick here. That'll do 170 damage to the Rayquaza. There's no special energy on the Rayquaza, so we won't discard an energy, but still 170 is a pretty solid hit, especially when Rayquaza VMAX will only have just over 300 HP, so we should be able to knock it out either with Moltres or Suicune at a later date. Looks like they are going to retreat, though, into a Boltund, which is an interesting choice. And then they're going to utilize the Electrify attack by the looks of things. Now, I can understand why they've done that. They need to get some more energy in play, and they need to create a situation where maybe they're going to be able to attack with their Rayquazas for a bit more damage. But one of the issues with Boltund is that it is weak to fighting, and this Boltund is not going to be able to take a knockout this turn. It can use Bolt Storm, which will deal a bit of damage. I think it's 10 plus 30 for every lightning energy in play, but unfortunately, there just aren't that many lightning energy in play at the moment, which means Electrify is going to be the way that it goes. Means they can search out a couple of lightning energies and attach it to their Pokemon. That's fine for them, but it's even better for us. It means that there's 2 prizes sitting there for free, so we may as well take them. At the moment, though, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to Rotom Phone. I'll grab the Rotom Phone off of that Rotom Phone. We're not really desperately looking for anything here. Potentially could have grabbed another one of those 5 cards. I don't think it really matters. We're going to put the Air Balloon onto the Articuno. That will reduce the retreat cost of that Pokemon by 2 colorless energy. So now the Articuno has free retreat, can move in and out of the active for free. And we're just going to use Thunderous Kick. That lightning Pokemon is weak to fighting. We can take 2 prizes on the Boltund just like that, so we will. And we put ourselves in a very, very good position where we've already hit into one of their VMAXs. There's a Crobat on the bench that we can easily knock out with either Moltres or Zapdos. And the same thing can be said for the VMAX. That is going to be their only attacker. Realistically, that Rayquaza is coming into the active this turn. So we will be able to knock that out with Moltres. We probably even knock it out with Suicune, to be honest. Although, you know, we'll wait and see exactly what is dealt to us when that Rayquaza comes forward. Now, a couple of things about this deck whilst our opponent is playing out their turn. This deck is not necessarily the best deck floating around at the moment. It preys on your opponent's weaknesses. So if you're expecting to see a lot of decks that are weak to fighting and dark and water, as you probably will be expecting to see at the moment, thanks to the popularity of cards like Eternatus VMAX and Mew VMAX, then this deck may be a good choice, depending on how many of those you're expecting to see. In all honesty, though, the deck is a little bit awkward. It's got some interesting mechanics to it, some interesting abilities, but it's not necessarily the strongest deck out there. We will get to the grade at the end of the video, so I will tell you exactly what I think of the deck, but at the moment, based on the few games that I have played with it, it does feel a little bit gimmicky, but that's what it's all about, right? It's playing decks that are interesting rather than the same old every time. So hopefully you have enjoyed it. If you have, like the video, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Looks like our opponent is getting ready here. Nigmac has 3 energy on one Rayquaza and 4 on the other. I'm bringing forward the damaged Rayquaza here, and now with Max Burst, they will be able to knock out our Zapdos. They will discard 3 of their lightning energies, and we will promote probably just the Articuno, to be brutally honest. There's an Air Balloon on it, so it's got free retreat. We'll chuck that into the active, and then we can go from there. Boss's Orders is a very good card for us at the moment. I am not unhappy to see that. I'm going to grab another Galarian Zapdos here. That seems like a very, very useful attacker in this matchup. Our opponent has a bunch of different V Pokemon on the field, so we will definitely put those there. We'll die Flame Wings with this Moltres. You never know, we might be able to get one of the energies off, and then we will retreat into the Moltres. And let's go for the Rotom Phone. We'll see if we can't energy switch. We can. Fantastic. We will utilize our Reconstitute ability, get rid of the Air Balloon and the Dark Energy to draw into that energy switch, which we can now play. We'll move one of the energies off of the Articuno, the Moltres, sorry, and put it onto the Suicune. We'll fill out our hand with Rose Tower, and now we are in a position where we are effectively checkmating our opponent. We can Aura Burn here, take 3 prizes utilizing our Moltres, taking a knockout on that Rayquaza, and we have a Boss's Orders in hand, as well as 3 Pokemon that are capable of taking a knockout on a Crobat next turn, as well as the Mareep that our opponent has put down onto the field of play. So as long as our hand remains the same, we should be able to get the win here. We've got plenty of damage with Suicune. Our Moltres will deal 190, and our Zapdos, obviously, dealing 170 times 2, will knock out a Mareep or a Crobat. So, feeling pretty good about this one, and you can see why this deck is so interesting and so popular amongst some players at the moment. It's got very, very versatile matchups. You can be very creative with what you end up doing. Which I like. It looks like they're going to bring the Suicune with 2 energy attached to it into the active, deciding that that's going to be the easiest thing to take a knockout on. It's also going to be the thing that we utilize to try and take a half hit on that Rayquaza if we do miss the KO, but ultimately if we miss the KO, we will probably lose the game anyway. So we'll just wait and see what our opponent gets up to here. Ultimately, though, I think this one is locked up. You've used Boss's Orders. There's no other way for them to manipulate our hand. I'm 99% sure that we should go on to win this. It's just a matter of whether we want to use Moltres or Zapdos. Both of them very powerful attackers. And something that I really like about this deck is that it is all V Pokemon. There's no Inteleon engine, which lots of people are utilizing at the moment. There's no VMAXs, so there's nothing that's overtly broken. Just some solid 2 prize attackers. We'll throw the Articuno into the active again. We do have Boss's Orders, though, so we can use that to bring out a Crobat. And let's retreat. We'll go into our Zapdos here to Thunderous Kick. Apparently, I haven't attached energy since I've re-uploaded my PTCGO. Oh, I just got a little notification. I wonder what that was. Anyway, we've won. It took me a couple of minutes to decide what Pokemon to put behind me here. I've gone for Zapdos because I think it's the most interesting one. Honestly, this deck is pretty average when you look at it in a objective lens. It's relatively expensive. Moltres is kind of hard to get, and there are a couple of other V cards like Suicune that are a little bit awkward. Power-wise, though, it's pretty good. It can hit half damage on any VMAX pretty much, and if you are hitting for weakness, that will get some one-shot knockouts. Consistency-wise, I've given it a C. It does what you'd expect it to do. It's pretty solid, but it's not necessarily going to draw into what you need every time. You're relying on cards like Articuno and also Rose Tower to draw cards, which is never a good sign. Much prefer to play something with a little bit more of a succinct draw engine, but still pretty solid. So there you have it. Thank you very much for coming along today and checking this deck profile out. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you've already watched all the way through, give this video a like for me and comment down below what kind of decks you'd like to see in the near future. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I will see you next time for more from the Sableyes. Bye!